Hello, welcome everyone. My name is Dhruva. I'm one of the co-founders of Lumiere, and I'm so excited to chat to you all today about the program. Over the course of the next 30 to 45 minutes, we'll be walking you through what the program is, how it's structured, what you can expect from us, and what we in turn expect from you. But before we dive into any of those nitty-gritty details, I wanted to start, as we always do, with a story. Who are we and why are we doing what we do? So as I mentioned, my name is Dhruva, and I grew up in a city in South India called Chennai. I've marked that on the map for those of you who aren't familiar with it. And growing up, I don't think I knew a single person with a PhD. Being in an Indian family, if I looked really hard, I suspect I could have found someone who was doing research in engineering or medicine, but I was a competitive debater and I was interested in questions that were very different. Questions like, why are some countries rich and other countries poor? What causes technological innovation and how can we boost it? What are the roots of ethnic conflict and how can they be prevented? And I figured that the best place to dig deeper into these questions would be in a liberal arts context. And so I applied to universities in the States, and I was lucky enough to get into Harvard, where I studied economics. But even at Harvard, I was knocking on the doors of professors trying to get access to research opportunities, only to be told, you're a freshman, you're a sophomore. What could you possibly add to our research? That changed for me the summer after my second year of undergrad, where I got into a one-on-one research program over at the Harvard Business School. And that changed the trajectory of my life. I was working with a professor on a research project on labor market gaps. And it blew my mind that there were people whose entire day job was to think about the world, how it worked, to turn that into research that other people actually cared enough to read and respond to. And that set me on a trajectory of continuing to do research through my junior and senior years of college. At the end of college, I decided I'd become a professional nerd. So I went straight into graduate school, did a master's, and then a PhD at Oxford in international development. But that summer also changed my life in another way, in that I met the other beaming young man you see on the screen. That's my co-founder, Stephen. And if I came from a background where I knew nothing about research, Stephen came from a lineage of researchers. His dad was a professor of business at the University of Missouri, and his great-grandfather, Fritz Kahn, whose book you see on the screen, was such a prominent researcher in Germany that when Fritz had to flee Germany because of the Holocaust, Fritz was Jewish, the person who wrote a letter that got him asylum in the United States was Albert Einstein. So that's the kind of background of researchers that Stephen comes from. But for him, that summer of doing research was meaningful in a different way, in that for the first time, he had access to mentors who really shaped the way that he thought and that he could turn to. These were folks who were doing research, who were a few years ahead of him in the types of things he wanted to do. And they became people that he could turn to with questions about academics, what to do after college, where to go, and how to build his career in life. Stephen ended up working at McKinsey, the consulting firm, and then worked at a university in Vietnam before deciding that he wanted to take a shot at doing something entrepreneurial himself. So that's when Stephen and I started chatting 5 years ago now in the summer of 2020. And we were reflecting on how much that research program that we'd done together had changed our lives. And we realized that we would have loved to have done that type of thing earlier in high school as nerdy 15 and 16-year-olds. And so that's the context in which we started Lumiere. And over the last 5 years, we've had the pleasure as well as the incredible good fortune to work with thousands of students from over 100 different countries on research projects across so many different fields. So the core of what we do is we match students with mentors who are top researchers at universities in the US or the UK. And the mentors and students then work together virtually over the course of the program to explore a topic, and the mentors guide students as they write a paper in the field. And so the core of the program is creating that independent research paper, a 15 to 20 page paper that digs deep into a field and writes provides a unique insight, perspective, or finding in that field. But along the way, students, I think, get a lot of different things. The first is they build a set of skills: reading, writing, critical thinking, analysis, which stand them really well both in college and beyond. They build relationships with these mentors, these PhD researchers that they can turn to for guidance and feedback, and down the line, potential recommendation letters. For students in the program, they can also opt to get credit through our relationship with UC San Diego's Extended Studies Department. And all of that together, we've seen really help students stand out in the admissions process. When they're applying to college, especially to top programs, being able to demonstrate that they have the resilience and grit and initiative to do things outside of the classroom, as well as demonstrate academic ability and interest in the field that they're planning to study, goes a long way in helping admissions officers understand why the student wants to do what they want to do and how they'll fit into a university environment. As I mentioned, in the last year, we've had more than 13,000 students apply to our programs. We work with a pool of over 2,500 mentors and given out over $1 million in financial aid. The core of the program, the real secret sauce, is the mentors. We've put in a ton of work over the last 5 years to build a pool of mentors that are talented, that are eager to work with the next generation of researchers. And these mentors come from top 30 institutions in the US and some of the top 5 universities in the UK. For students who've applied to the program, the timeline is as follows. So this is the timeline for students that have not applied for financial aid. Please keep in mind that if you've applied for financial aid, each stage usually takes about 2 to 3 weeks more. So you fill out the online application, which you all have already done. That's why you're on this call. Based on the quality of the application, you'll then receive an invite to interview within 3 to 5 days of submission. We ask that you keep an eye out for this and sign up for an interview. Once you've interviewed, you'll receive an application decision within a week from the interview date. If accepted into the program, you'll be asked to put down a refundable deposit to confirm your spot in the program. Once you've done that, we then kick off the mentor matching process, where we look for a mentor that we think would be a good fit and get their agreement on working with you. And once we have that mentor match, we come back to you with the profile of the mentor. At this stage, most students are super excited. They say yes, they pay tuition and get ready to kick the program off. Some students might feel that the mentor that we've identified might not be the right fit for them for whatever reasons, in which case you're welcome to write back and ask for a different mentor profile that fulfills other conditions, and we'll do our best to match you with a different mentor. You then receive the welcome packet, you start looking through all of that, and then at the cohort start date, you kick the program off. In this room, we have students who are doing research in a whole bunch of different fields. We have our most popular fields tend to be areas like data science and computer science, physics and astrophysics, biology and medicine, economics and business, and psychology. But we've had students do research in art history and philosophy and linguistics and everything in between. And this is sampling of the types of mentors that we work with. As I mentioned, given the pool of 2,500, it would be a very crowded slide if I tried to include everyone, but we're so excited by the stable of mentors that we've been able to build. A common question is, how do these student-mentor matches happen? So we have this pool of mentors. We ask them for their availability for upcoming cohorts. Once students have applied and been interviewed, we then look through the application interview notes and look through our available pool of mentors to identify mentors that we think would be a good fit in terms of, and this is the most important thing, matching research and academic interest. Secondly, in terms of a personality fit. And the third is the methods that the student might want to use, so qualitative versus quantitative methods. In general, all of these mentors are PhD candidates or professors at top 30 programs in their discipline and are talented and looking to work with the next generation of researchers. This is something that we've tried over and over again. We're really big on feedback. So both at the midpoint of the program and at the end point of the program, we ask students for feedback on their mentors. And it's been exciting to see that on average, students have rated mentors 9.25 out of 10. So this indicates that students really enjoy working with their mentors and learn a lot from the process. If you're in this room, that means that you've applied to one of our 4 high school programs or our middle school programs. So our 4 high school programs are laid out here. The individual research program is 3 months long. You have 9 sessions with the mentor as well as meetings with the writing coach. And you work with the mentor to create a college-level academic paper, 15 to 20 pages. At the end of the program, the mentor writes you an evaluation. We have a graduation ceremony where we celebrate you, and then you're off to the races on your own. If you are applying to the premium research and publication program, then in that program, for the first 3 months, you work with a mentor in a similar way that you would in the individual research program. You just have 12 sessions with the mentor instead of 9. So you have more sessions with the mentor, as well as more sessions with the writing coach and publication specialist. The publication specialist is an internal team member who will help you identify a high school or college level journal to submit your work to. Once you've identified the journal that you want to work on, we then help you tailor your research to that journal. These journals are usually run by nonprofits or universities with the goal of platforming the work of young researchers. So they calibrate their expectations to the work that a high school student or a college student might do, but they still have a rigorous review process. And so at the end of 3 months, you then submit your work to the publication that you've decided on. And then we wait with you. The journals usually take between 1 to 2 months to get back to you with a decision. At the end of that, if they come back to you with an acceptance, we pop the non-alcoholic champagne and celebrate with you. If you get a rejection or get what's called a revise and resubmit, then you get additional sessions with the mentor as well as with the writing coach and the publication specialist to make changes to your paper and resubmit either to the same journal or elsewhere. And we're happy to help you through multiple rounds of these submission as needed if you don't get into your first choice journal. The fellowship is our longest program and a good fit for students that really want to do intensive work over an extended period of time. There you get up to 30 sessions with the mentor. The expectation in that program is that you're going beyond doing what's called a literature review to doing some sort of original data analysis, and you're submitting to a college level journal or higher or a competition. And so that kind of support for submitting to publications and competitions is included as part of the fellowship as well. And then finally, we have the Professor Premium Program, which is for students that really want to work with professors rather than PhD students or postdocs. Some students want that experience. And in that program, we match you specifically with a professor from a top university where you work with them one-on-one to build your paper and then submit to publications. I see a question in the chat which says, can you still apply to the publication program currently? If you have applied to a program and want to switch that program, say from the individual research program to the publication program, we're happy to do that right now. Just email us at admissions@lumiere.education. We can make that change for you on the back end. It's really important that you ask us sooner rather than later, because a mentor who's available to work with you for the 3-month program might not be available to work with you for a longer program. So when we match you with a mentor, it's really important that we let them know which program you're applying for so that they can set their expectations accordingly. So feel free to email us if you want to switch to a different program. The other program that some of you might have applied for is the middle school program called the Junior Explorer Program. So the Junior Explorer Program is shorter, it's 8 weeks long, and it's for middle school students who are looking to explore their academic interests and build a project that they're passionate about. It's more oriented towards exploration. So the first 4 weeks of the program, you're looking at different subtopics within the area that you picked. And then from weeks 5 to 6, you're diving deeper into one specific topic and then writing that up in the form of a project. That could be a shorter research paper, say a 3 to 5 page paper. It could be a poster. It could be a presentation. Some students have done case studies or business cases. So the output is more varied based on who you are and what your interests are. That program is for middle school students, and the expectation is that you're creating high school level work, and the cost for that program is $2,400. I see a question in the chat about financial aid. So that's very well placed. We have offered financial aid ever since we started. Last year, about 10% of our students did our program entirely for free as part of our financial aid program. That makes us one of the largest free one-on-one research programs in the world. And we're really proud of our commitment to financial aid. The thing about our financial aid program, though, is while it's generous, it is limited. And so if you need financial aid, you need to have marked that on your application. And financial aid is based on both need and merit. So first, we look at whether or not you're in financial need. The benchmark for that is $90,000 or less family income if you are in a developed country, and about $30,000 or less if you are in a developing country. If you don't meet that, then unfortunately, you do not qualify for financial aid. But if you do meet that, we then look at the quality of your application, the quality of your interview, and based on that, allocate a financial aid budget to top candidates. If anything has changed with your financial circumstances, please email us at the email ID I put in the chat, admissions@lumiere.education, explaining the shift in circumstances and the need for financial aid. We'll need to take that into account once again earlier rather than later. The reason for this is because once we have allocated a financial budget for a cohort, if you come to us after that, at that point, we unfortunately cannot disburse more aid than we had budgeted for. The final thing about financial aid is that it is only offered for the individual research program and the junior explorer program. We do not offer financial aid for our longer programs. The philosophy behind this is that we want our financial aid to reach as many students as possible. Obviously, the longer programs cost a lot more to run. And so if we were offering that, then we would not be able to introduce as many students as we want who deserve research opportunities to research. So we only offer aid for the individual research program and the junior explorer program. Fabulous. So that's kind of the high-level overview of the different programs. Let's dig a little bit deeper into the high school programs and how they are structured. So in 3-month individual research program, you are meeting with your mentor pretty much each week for an hour virtually. That is broken down into a few different sections. So the initial weeks are preparation and exploration. So the mentor is assigning you papers to read or tasks to do with the goal of helping you understand the different subtopics within the field, the methods used, and so on. We then have a series of deadlines. So by week 3, you turn in your research question, which is a clear kind of encapsulation of the topic that you are planning to write your paper on. Week 4, you turn the research proposal that explains how you're planning to answer that question, what methods you're using, what papers you're looking at, that type of thing. Week 5, you turn an outline, which says, here are the different sections of my paper and what I'm going to be saying under each of them. And then the next sort of 7 weeks of the program, you're working with your mentor on actually doing the analysis, whether that is a literature review, a quantitative data analysis, or a qualitative data analysis, and writing up your results. In week 9, you turn in the first draft. Your mentor gives you feedback on that draft, and then you have a couple of writing weeks where you make edits based on your mentor's feedback and turn in your final draft. After that, your mentor gives you an evaluation, and you're done with the program. If you're in one of the publication programs, then in addition to meeting with your mentor during this period, you are also meeting with the publication specialist. And as I mentioned, in week 13, you then submit your paper to publication and wait to hear back. There's a question in the chat about flexibility around this timeline. Specifically, the question says, can a student go more quickly to have less overlap with the school year? That's a good question. We're definitely open to that, but you will, once again, need to let us know by emailing us sooner rather than later so that we can let the mentor that we're planning to match you with know that that's the expectation, and they can then take a call on whether they have the capacity to support you on that or not. Similarly, if there are weeks where you're traveling or have other commitments and might not be able to do the program, and instead you either want to extend the program by a couple of weeks or you want to move more quickly through the rest of the program, that's fine as well. Realistically, I think students will need about 9 or 10 weeks to do a good quality paper. I think doing it in less time than that is ambitious and tricky, but shoot us an email and then we can match you with a mentor who's happy to work with you on your timeline. The fellowship, which is the year-long program, the one with 30 sessions with the mentor, is a longer version of this where you have more time to both explore and build up your skills. And therefore, you can spend more time actually conducting the study that you want to conduct, collect original data, and write it up and submit it to a journal or competition. I'll pause there. I wanted to see if there were any questions about the structure of the different programs. We're now going to talk about expectations, and then we'll talk about the publication process and interview process in a second. So if you have questions about that, hold those. But I was curious if there were any questions about the structure of our programs and how they work. Will mentors spend time teaching you foundational concepts in your research area? Absolutely. So the first few weeks of the program are around skill building, where the mentor is assigning you papers to read, tasks to do. You're expected to put in about 6 to 8 hours of independent work outside of that. So you will need to sit down and struggle with these papers, try and understand the concepts, use the resources available online to try and dig deeper. But then the next meeting with the mentor is the right opportunity for you to go, okay, here's what I understood, here's what I didn't understand, and I would love for you to explain. So the mentor can then spend some time during the session helping you, walking you through those concepts, as well as giving you more resources that you can use to dig deeper. Acceptance rate and criteria for selection. We're going to talk about the interview process in a second towards the end of the presentation. Can I ask my mentor for a letter of recommendation for one of my college applications at the end of the program? Great question. So across all of our programs, all students receive an evaluation from their mentor that says, here are your strengths, here are your weaknesses, here's how you stand in comparison to other students that I've worked with. If you need a personalized recommendation letter, you're welcome to ask them. We leave that up to you and the mentor to have a conversation based on the relationship that you built and the type of quality of work that you've done. All of these mentors are PhDs, so they've gotten to where they are because people have written them rec letters for college and then their master's degrees and their PhDs. And so they're very open to it, but we don't require students to ask for it or mentors to write it. We think a recommendation letter needs to come from someone who really believes in you and thinks you've done good work. What is the expectation for time dedication for the Junior Explorer program? So that program is also a weekly 1-hour meeting with a mentor. And then outside of that, the expectation is about 5 to 6 hours of independent work each week. Can you take the individual research program into the higher program as an extend into the publication program? Really good question. So if you start the individual program and decide you want to transition into the publication program, we are open to that. There's two issues though. The first is, as I mentioned, a mentor who's available for a shorter period might not be available for a longer program. So if you do want to make that transition, we might then have to shift your mentor, which might be disruptive to your progress. The second thing is, in the publication program, you're thinking about where you want to submit your work to from about week 3 of the program. And different journals have different expectations around types of papers they accept, how papers need to be structured, citation styles, and so on. And so it is a lot easier for you to publish if you have been thinking about publication from the get-go than writing a paper and then going, okay, now I need to make a whole bunch of edits to then submit to a journal. So we're happy to work with you to make that transition if you would like, but if you are serious about publication, then I would recommend starting with the publication program. Are the weekly meetings scheduled at a specific time or is it flexible? It's one-on-one. So you and your mentor coordinate to decide on the time that works for both of you. So it isn't at a specific time for all students. It's based on you and your mentor deciding on a time. Is it possible to get more time with the mentor if the student needs more help? So the kind of structure of 9 sessions, 15 sessions, 30 sessions is set. That's kind of what the program is structured around. Mentors are obviously available on email. They can give you access to additional resources. If you need 1 or 2 additional sessions, you can reach out to your program manager and ask if that would be possible. We can speak to your mentor and try and make that happen. But if you decide that you need, 5 extra hours with your mentor, then that would be harder, and we'd have to have a conversation around what that looks like. Awesome. So what does the program promise and what is it not? And what do we require from you in order to make it happen? So the goal of the program is to provide world-class guidance and feedback and resources that students can use to accomplish the goals of writing a research paper. We recognize that students come in with different backgrounds, that some students have never done research before, other students have spent years working on a topic, and we encourage mentors to meet students where they are. We want students to have a fun, enriching experience where they learn about themselves and the world and come out of it with a project that they're proud of. That said, we are not a tutoring center. The structure of this program is that it is an independent research program with guidance and supervision and mentorship from the PhD mentors. And so students should be expecting to put in independent hard work and drive their project rather than being handheld kind of minute to minute through the writing and analysis. The second is we also don't expect all students to have the same type of final project. Similar to any type of college course, based on the background you come in with, the experience you have, as well as the work you put in, your output could look very different student to student in terms of quality and strength of the paper. There's some questions in the chat. Would like to understand how your mentoring process works. Do mentors also help in proposing research topic, or is topic selection entirely led by the student? Good question. So mentors are encouraged to think of themselves as driving instructors, where the student is driving the car, but the mentor is there to help the student understand how to drive the car and then make sure they're not hitting any trees and are kind of giving them the guidance needed. So what does that look like in practice? When I'm mentoring a student, week 3, we're like, okay, your research question is due at the end of next week. For the next meeting, come in with 3 potential research questions based on our conversations over the last couple of weeks. And so the student then comes in with 3 questions. I then go through those questions with them saying, okay, the first question is really interesting, but it's super ambitious and it's not realistic for you to try and do that in a 3-month program. That second question is both interesting and doable, but there's another paper that does a pretty similar topic. So why don't you change that a little bit to focus on X rather than Y? So it's very much a back and forth. And then as you start choosing your methods, you start writing the paper. At every step of the way, the meetings with the mentor are an opportunity for the mentor to give you input and feedback and guidance to ensure that you're doing something that is both valuable and doable within the time period. Does Lumiere provide any guidance on how to reflect on and write about our research experience for college applications or personal essays? Good question. So we don't really step into the college applications process. We're pretty nerdy outfit that helps focus on the research. We do have a student guidebook, and part of that is some suggestions for students to think about potential ways of incorporating this into college applications. We're also happy to chat with you separately if that's something that you want to talk through. Could you change your research subject now before the start of the cohort? Yes. So if you want to change from, say, physics to music, so like big jump, then please let us know ASAP so that we can then change the mentor, and then you'll work with the mentor in the field that you are interested in. So shoot us an email, once again, at admissions@lumiere.education, and we can then make that change. Once you start the program, you're working with a mentor who's an expert in a particular field. So say you're working with a mentor who's an expert in psychology. Once you've started that, you could switch from a topic in social psychology to a topic in behavioral psych. Your mentor probably can help guide you in both of those, but switching from psych to physics will then be harder. Does the student own their research? Yes, the research is entirely the students. They're the sole author on their research paper, and it's entirely their property. We don't own it. The mentor doesn't own it. It's all yours. How will the writing coach contribute to the final product? How often are they able to help us if we're in the individual program? So there's two ways of engaging with the writing coach, either getting written feedback or a meeting with them, or both. So in the individual program, you can use the writing center up to twice over the course of the program, either with written feedback or a meeting. And if it's written feedback, they then go through your whatever you send them, do inline comments using track changes, saying, okay, this section looks really good. This section is a bit confusing. Would you consider restructuring it this way? Here are places where you need additional citations. So the role of the writing coach is really to help with flow, with clarity, rather than with content, which is what the mentor is there for. Given the breadth of subjects, how does a student without prior research experience determine which topic to choose? Will the initial papers the mentor is giving help them determine that? Exactly. So let's say a student comes in broadly with an interest in studying business, and they're like, okay, I think I'm interested in studying marketing. If I was working with that student, I'd spend the first 3 weeks with a clear syllabus. So mentors put together a syllabus for the first 3 weeks of the program, where we say, okay, week 1, we're exploring this subtopic within marketing. In week 2, we're exploring this other subtopic. In week 3, we're exploring this third subtopic. And the work that the student is doing of reading those papers, engaging with it, talking to the mentor, is helping them understand different kinds of research that happens in the field so that they can make an informed decision about their research question. Fabulous. So what do we then expect from students? We engage with research scholars as responsible young adults and future leaders in their fields, and that comes with a set of responsibilities. The first is around communication. We communicate by email, and so students should be checking their email every day and responding to emails from their mentor or from Lumiere team members within 24 hours. Also communicate early and often. If you envision there being any concerns or issues, other obligations, let us know as soon as you can in the program so that your program manager and your mentor can help you kind of streamline your project and structure it in a way that allows you to do good work. Second, around mentor meetings. If you and your mentor decide on a time, the expectation is that both of you will attend. If you need to reschedule, you need to ask at least 48 hours in advance, barring kind of health or other emergencies. If you ask to cancel less than 48 hours before your meeting, your mentor isn't under an obligation to accommodate that request. Third, we have these deadlines built into the program. Your mentor might set you additional deadlines that you agree with for smaller parts of your research. And so once you and your mentor have agreed on a deadline or with the program deadlines, you're expected to stick to them. You're, of course, if things come up, you're welcome to ask for extensions, and we grant those on a case-by-case basis, but that needs to be asked for in advance. So the idea is that structure really creates good work, and that structure is important to us. Finally, this is a really cool opportunity. It's a kind of opportunity that not very many high school students get. And so in the program, we ask that students show up with enthusiasm, do good work, ensure that the work that they're submitting is original or appropriately cited. And what role do parents play here? So we Recognize that it takes a village to raise a research scholar. And so please check in with your students about their progress, reach out to us about their successes, or even more importantly, with any concerns that you're seeing that you want us to step in and respond to. The program manager is your immediate point of contact for any concerns during the program. We'll also more formally send out a request for feedback during the program. And so please do let us know if there's anything on your mind. Once you're in the program, you can also choose to sign up for credit through UCSD Extended Studies. So these are what are called post-baccalaureate credits offered by UCSD Extended Studies Department. You get a transcript. There's a operational fee associated with it, and we'll send you information about that once you start the program. Fabulous. So that's kind of the ins and outs of the program. What does the program actually look like for a student going through it, and what happens after? I just want to take you through some of our students. And this is my favorite part of this presentation. I could speak about our students all day, every day. Otis joined us from Lynbrook High School, and he was looking at the role of humanin as a potential preventative and therapeutic in Alzheimer's disease. And so he worked with his mentor on a project that he actually did in two parts. The first part, he submitted to the MIT Think Innovation Competition, which is a big competition for high school students. Just actually ended up winning that. So really kind of talented student that took work forward on his own to submit to something impressive. Alexandra joined us from much further away, from Monaco, and she was looking at mRNA vaccines, which have been in the news in the last couple of years because of their role in ending the COVID-19 pandemic. But she was looking at the application of mRNA vaccines as an approach to treat luminal A breast cancer. She wrote that paper, she submitted it to the International Journal of High School Research, where she was published. And then what was cool was Alexandra did the program with us the summer after her sophomore year. Based on the research paper that she wrote with us, she then reached out independently to professors at the Harvard Medical School and got an in-person research internship opportunity at the Boston Children's Hospital for the following summer, the summer after her junior year. And Alexandra is actually currently, then ended up getting into Harvard and is currently a sophomore there as well. Zunian joined us from Weston. Zunian is a really interesting student. He was interested in the intersection of economics and the environment, and he was looking at how government policy can influence two very different industries, the growth of the electrical vehicle industry and the growth of the seaweed industry. He then took the part of his paper that was about electrical vehicles and turned that into a paper that he submitted to the Cornell Undergraduate Economic Review, where he was the only high school student to be published. Then he took the part that was about seaweed and ended up starting a seaweed farm of his own. So kind of a really unique way of using his research. Lily and Ria did research in physics. Lily was looking at particle physics and dark matter. And her case is really interesting. She asked her mentor for a recommendation letter. The mentor really enjoyed working with her, so the mentor wrote her that rec letter. And then the admissions office at Princeton actually reached out to the mentor and did a call with the mentor to better understand whether or not Lily would be a good fit for a top university. And this was in the context that Lily went to a high school that had not sent students to universities like Princeton before. And so they looked to the mentor as an authoritative, thoughtful voice that knew what it would be like at a top university and could speak to Lily effectively. So she actually ended up getting into Princeton and is a rising senior there. Ria looked at kind of the origins of the Big Bang and initial conditions of the universe that resulted in the universe we have today. She just did the 3-month individual research program with us, but then after finishing the program, she took her paper and did two things. She turned it into a series of blog posts that she published on her personal blog. She also then started a research club at her school where she took what she learned in the program and passed it on to younger students. And that was something that she then talked about in her college applications and is currently at Penn. And finally, Theo was in the social sciences, so different to a lot of the students we've spoken about so far. He was looking, and this was back in 2020, before ChatGPT was out. He was looking at AI and how the US, China, and Europe have differing policies on regulating and responding to AI. And so he published that at the Journal of Student Research and is currently at Berkeley. That's just a sampling of many, many students that have done the program. You have others like Justin, who's featured in the Brown Journal of World Affairs, Shaunak, who is a finalist at ICEF Regeneron, and many others. Let's speak for a second about what publication looks like. So in our publication programs, students work with a mentor to develop the research paper and then submit it to the journal. As I mentioned, we then wait to hear back from the journal. And if it's a rejection or a revise and resubmit, you then have additional support from the mentor as well as from the writing coach and publication specialist to make changes and resubmit. These journals that they're submitting to are varied. They're high school level journals like the Journal of Emerging Investigators, the Journal of Young Investigators, the National High School Journal of Science, as well as undergraduate level journals like the Cornell Undergraduate Economic Review, Stanford's Intersect Journal, which mainly publish college students, but also are open to high school students. So that's kind of how the publication process works and the types of places that students submit to. Especially if you're in the fellowship, we also have had many students submit to science fairs and competitions like ICEP Regen and all. And all of that pays off finally in the college admissions process. So in the 2023-24 admission cycle, we had students accepted to every single Ivy, as well as Oxbridge, Stanford, and as well as Oxbridge, Stanford, and Berkeley. This includes 13 at Penn, 11 at Stanford. In the next year, that is last year, we had, I think it was 8 students that got into Harvard. So I'm not claiming that we're to credit for all of it. That would be classic mistake of saying correlation and causation. These students were talented to begin with and would have done really well even without us. But what we know qualitatively, and we do a survey every year, is students unanimously use research in their applications. They either put it on their activities list, talk about it in their essays, maybe ask their mentors for recommendation letters. And we've had a number of signals that this does help. We've seen that students that get rec letters or publish do better than students that don't. And we've also seen admissions officers recognizing that. So we've had students, for example, who've gotten into Case Western, where multiple times the research that the students have done has been flagged in the acceptance letter as something that the university took an interest in. We've now done sessions for our students and alumni with a couple of dozen admissions officers so that they get to know our program, get to know our students, and students understand what universities are looking for too. So that's the program. To recap the application timeline, it goes application, interview, application decision and deposit payment, mentor match, full tuition payment, and then you kick the program off. The time between each of these stages is roughly 3 to 7 days, unless you've asked for financial aid, in which case it takes 2 to 3 weeks for each stage so that we have enough time to accurately evaluate your application and compare you to other candidates. The mentor match process usually takes about a week, but there's instances where if your field is particularly narrow or mentors for some reason are unable to work with you, then we might need a couple of rounds of it to send you the mentor match. Finally, there's a question about what makes for a good candidate in the program. So in the application interview, we're looking for a few different things. The first thing we're looking for is academic excellence. If you're struggling in school, this is not the program for you. That doesn't mean you need to have an A in every single subject, though if you do, that's great. But if there's an area that you're particularly excited by, you're curious about the world, you have a big question, and you are obsessed with World War II, or you're obsessed with trains and how they work, that kind of interest and desire and deep kind of excitement for a topic is also something that can make up for maybe lower grades in some other classes that you're taking. Next, the ability to work independently and diligently is super important. As I mentioned, students are expected to do 6 to 8 hours of independent work each week. And that means sitting down and doing some things that are hard. It means struggling with research papers and reading them. It means sitting down in front of an empty Google document and putting your first words down when you are struggling to. Doing that is important, and we're here to support you, but you've got to be able to put in the initiative and drive. The one thing we're not looking for is extensive research experience in your field of interest. As you heard from my story, it is tricky to break into research, and our goal is to make it possible for students to do that. And so if you have not done research before, that's totally fine. Of course, the more experience you come into the program with, if you have statistical skills, if you have coding skills, that means you can hit the ground running faster and write a higher quality paper, but it's not necessary in order to do the program. Quick housekeeping note. So please keep an eye on your guys' inboxes, both students and parents, including your spam folder for emails from the team. If you feel like you haven't heard back, that might be a good place to check. If you've been accepted, you'll receive payment invoices through Stripe, and you'll have follow-on details there as well. And if you have any questions, reach out to us at admissions@lumiere.education, and you can expect to hear back from us within 24 hours of sending an email. I see a couple of questions. Will you be sending the slides to us so we can consult them later? Yes, we'll be sending out a recording once the second version of this is done as well. You don't have to attend that one if you've attended this one already, but we offer it at 2 different times for students and parents in different time zones. Once that one is done, we'll send out a recording to all students and parents. How does the university credit help with the admissions process in another university? So what it really does is it offers an external validation of the program the student has done and the research that they've done. So it's a transcript that can be submitted to other universities in the additional information section in order to demonstrate that, hey, this work that I've done is meaningful. What key skills should a student develop to quickly adapt and succeed in research? It's a good question. I think the thing about research is it's all about working hard in the face of ambiguity to turn that ambiguity into clarity and insights. And so what that means is things will be a little confusing, a little hard at the beginning, but sitting with that and breaking that down into different subtopics, different sub-ideas, trying to make sure that you understand them really well, and then turning that into a research project that you can effectively execute on over the course of 2 months. And this is something your mentor will help you with. So thinking about, okay, realistically, how much time will each of the different sections of the paper take? What will I need in order to do the analysis? How am I going to access that data? What is the work that I'll have to put in week 3 so that by week 6, I'll be able to do the things that I need to do? So planning around that is important. And then finally, if things go wrong, as they sometimes do, asking for help and being able to change up your process, change up your ideas, not being rigid and inflexible there, but being able to pivot when things go wrong and asking for the help you need are really important. Will the mentor be sending a summary after each meeting for the student? It's a good question. So after each meeting, both the student and the mentor fill out a form where they talk about what they did in that meeting, as well as if there were any concerns that were raised. That comes to us, not to the student and parent. And if there are any concerns raised, that's where the program manager steps in and gets things back on track. If you do want the notes from those meetings, you can email us and we can send them over. But also, if it's helpful for you to have those notes as a student, that's something that you can talk to your mentor early on and say, I would really love if after the meeting, we had the practice of sending each other the notes from the meeting, and mentors usually would be okay with that. For middle school students, can parents provide guidance when it comes to scheduling and resource quality? Absolutely. So the thing about the program is we expect it to be a relationship between the student and the mentor, but the role of the parent is really via the student. So I would really encourage you to check in with your student on how things are going, what they talked about with their mentor that week, what they're meant to be working on that particular week, and would love your support and guidance on ensuring that students are actually doing that work. And if they face any issues that they feel uncomfortable raising or are nervous about asking, for you to email us and let us know. That is the end of the formal presentation. Before I let you all go, I'll stick around for a few more minutes to answer any additional questions, but I just wanted to hark back to that first slide. Research really has totally changed my life. It's made me a more thoughtful and innovative person. It's made me be able to face challenges that I never thought I could. And so I'm so glad that you guys have applied to the program and are considering or being considered to do research with us. I really hope to see many of you in the program, but even if not, I hope you get the chance to experience research at some point in your lives. Thank you all so much. You are now free to go, and I'll stick around for a few more minutes for any final questions.